Okay, so welcome back, I guess. Now, before I continue, I must stress my absolute anger at Game Show for no reason whatsoever that I can fathom. It chose not to record the system audio for the entire video that I just recorded. So, I guess I should have been checking to see if all the outputs and all the sounds were working. But, I saved the session from last time, imported it, opened it up and expected it all just to work as it did yesterday. And if you're going to learn anything, don't expect things just to work, especially software on Windows machines. Game Show has unfortunately crashed for me a whole bunch of times just using it on Windows 10. And it's been a bit of a nightmare. So we're going to have to see, how things go with this. I've heard there are other programs that I can be using, even ones that are free. I've heard of OBS. I actually had was told about that from Lobos Jr. himself. Actually, I just had a very brief interaction with him on his stream through the chat box, and he told me of this free program that I could be using. Anyway, I'm going to open up Final Fantasy just for a moment and make sure that the sound is coming through, because I can now I'll be able to see my levels for the game. Wait there just a second. Actually, having said that, what I'm going to do is turn off, because the levels could be reacting to my headphones. Wait, and I can't tell through Twitch at the moment, so what I'm going to do instead is just turn off my headset. There you go. Okay, so yeah, it seems to be working. So what I'm now going to do is just go back into Twitch and then the game. And I do apologize about the pause and the end of the last stream. It's a bit untidy, but that happens. I've seen it happen with other streamers. And again, mostly I'm just really disappointed because I think I had some good things to say during my, the stream, and yet the game has not been playing with music. And the game, and I was talking about music during some parts of that stream. So what I'm going to have to do is go and just put on that stream once I've uploaded it. Well, it's already on Twitch, but once I upload it across to YouTube, just write, obviously, an apology again, much like I did with the fan noise in the first video. The third stream, unfortunately, also had an error. I didn't have system audio, and it's really embarrassing. And I will say, I was really angry when I found out that it hadn't recorded the sound. So, oh well. So what I'm going to do now is, there is one thing I do want to do, because I think I'm in the wrong scene on Twitch. So I'm going to just pull out the game a second. Because this isn't the stream right now, is it? This is something else. That's right. I'm going to go into my actual channel, and I should see myself doing this right now. Because this. Yeah. Okay. Great. So back into Final Fantasy. There we go. And if people are bothering, or I mean, I can understand why people wouldn't bother with a video which doesn't have music. But if you have, somehow, well, I'm going to continue now, probably for another hour, with music. And we're going to see where we can get, because, yeah, and hopefully this last part of the stream, it'd be nice if I can have a successful stream, a little, neater than the last. Certainly the first one and the last one. I think the second stream has been the most successful so far. Okay, let's go. So obviously we're coming back to talk to Aerith's mother about what's happened to Aerith. So yeah, we'll have a look through this. You can see Biggs and Jesse there, just kind of, yeah, in the corner. Indicating that, I'm guessing that one or both had been involved, possibly, in the war. Or perhaps they're just there at the train station. I don't actually know their backstories particularly. I like that. Sort of, And I understand this anxiety as well. I think I do, because although not fully, I just can understand a tiny part of it. The idea that, you know, and it's going to sound really silly, but there are times when I'm worried about friends or even my partner because I've not been in contact with them for a little while. And if it goes on too long and I find it hard to access them, to get in touch with them, then my brain starts making up all sorts of little catastrophes. It catastrophizes. And of course that is just a silly little thing. That's something that I think a lot of us do. And my point there is just that this is war. And it reminds me a little of the letters and the poetry of World War I soldiers and families involved in that time, and it's just such a it's crushingly sad. It's just really, you know, the idea that you know, people go young as well, and they don't come back, and I think that's, you know, this gets that hopelessness, I think, quite well. Of course, it's just a game, and it's not going to be able to really, truly get across that emotion. And I don't think, unless you've really gone through that, and I haven't gone through that so far. I guess I'm lucky enough not to have gone through anything of that sort, but there are people that do. And a game, I don't think a game is really going to be able to touch on that emotion. And perhaps it shouldn't be able to anyway, because a game making you feel that way is going to be, you know, that's going to be something else. And there you go, there's the denial aspects, I guess, of it. I mean, perhaps she does expect him home, but, you know, any war, there's always that very real possibility that, of course, your loved ones are going to lose their lives. And this is so sad. This music is so powerful with this moment. And in some ways that makes sense. I think it works here with the simplistic little characters, and I could see this kind of working with you know, the more the modern and proportionate, in proportion characters. And that, I think, is telling. Again, Aerith and I became close very quickly. And I think that it's telling because we've already seen evidence of that with Cloud, and even with Tifa already. I think it's part of what makes Aerith special. And she's resilient. Again, really resilient. Talking about her mother having returned to the planet, and it doesn't appear to have been a great source of sadness for her. It's not really present in the game, and I don't think it has to be, because I think that's what makes Aerith special. And that's touching. I think maybe for the first time. I think we know we've been talking about reactors sucking the energy out of the planet, and how the planet's going to die. But we haven't really touched on yet. I think this is the first time they touch on the idea that people return to the planet, that their souls return to the planet, and. I did say in my last, not the last stream, but tonight's other stream, which failed miserably, it seems. I did say that I would be touching on the study of planet life, and making some comparisons between that and real life elements that we have, real life, religions that we have. In the world, particularly, but I'll come back to those as things progress. And that's great direction there as well. That little sort of camera up, camera down. We've already gone into the past, and I think that's I've seen that obviously in cinema, and it's just such a really, and I think that actually happens in Final Fantasy VI as well. I'm just trying to recall at what point. Oh, I remember. I think the point that it happens in Final Fantasy VI is when Sabin is back at Figaro Castle with his brother, and it flashes back to the memory of him talking to his brother and going up to the roof, and then and Edgar flipping the coin. And Sabin going off, to live in the mountains. Sorry, bit of a digression there from Final Fantasy VII. Again, I think it is important that maybe at this point, maybe to make up for the last video as well, because I did decide that tonight I would, if I got the chance and it was relevant to the scene, I would talk about the element of the live stream and souls returning to it. And obviously Aerith displays a... I'm not sure, it's not an instinct. I think instinct isn't the right word. I think it's clearly... I'm not sure what the word is. I don't think clairvoyance is the right term, but she can see and she can feel things that are happening. Well, certainly with regard to spirits in the planet, not necessarily, just having knowledge of things that have happened far away, but when it comes to spirits, when it becomes to people returning to the Earth, to the planet. Sorry, it's not called Earth, actually, is it? That, yes, she has that, that's in her, she has that innate ability to tap, I suppose, that understanding. And of course, Shinra wants her for her ability and her power, because if she's sensitive to the workings of the planet and the life of the planet and the life stream and spirit energy, then she's going to be able to take them to the promised land, surely. And of course, it seems that people generally, Elmira there, of course, hearing that she's an ancient, I think people already know, kind of generally in history, even though it was thousands of years ago, they know kind of what the ancients were. And that was another thing I wanted to kind of touch on, the Promised Land, and again comparisons with religions on our planet. And of course, Elmira has suspected these powers, obviously knowing she knew that her husband had passed away. And I guess with that, I'm not entirely sure if Aerith was entirely found that having that knowledge and that power not at all traumatic. I think that there must have been times when she was deeply saddened by it as well. And we can see there her trying to hide things. That's maybe the first time we're hearing of Aerith having. I'm not sure if I don't think it's shame. But a sense that it brings her sadness to have these abilities and to have the knowledge that she is actually different, that she is someone else, that she's that she's not just human or normal like you and I or like Elmira and Cloud, Barrett, Tifa. She's an ancient, and with that comes an awful and great responsibility, I suppose. Again, that's an extra layer. Bravery on Aerith's part. And for the first time, actually, considering that I was saying in my first stream, being somewhat surprised that Marlene, at 4 years old, is being left in Tifa's 7th Heaven bar. I think it's her bar. I don't know why I keep calling that. It's called 7th Heaven, but I think it is her bar. Being left there by Barrett, by everyone, to take care of the store. What? Madness. And Barrett's he's not making excuses here. He's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, I guess. It's good to know. I think that would be an incredible relief. And I think it does come through there, just that feeling, that kind of, oh my god, Marlene's safe because of Aerith, and Aerith's, it's my fault, and I get that. I really do feel that scene played that beautifully. And my gosh, this scene is sad. It really is. That music. Ah! And finally, I think you can hear the music, obviously, and you know the music, I'm sure, and it's just the way it crescendos and then comes down, and it's just... Okay. I think that little moment as well, just where she says his whiskers hurt, I think that's very real as well. We're not. It lends a little more tangibility to the events. Just right now, obviously, he's holding on to her. That's his kid, and he thought he'd lost her, and he's pulling her close, and and obviously, getting the beard in the face, and just that mention, it's real. I think that's a very real thing, Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to... just follow this bit a moment. This is tricky. Let's hope so. I don't know, because when I think of let's hope so, I think I'm just trying to appease Marlene, really, with that. And I think that's what I'm doing. You know, sort of just, let's hope so. You know, not, oh, I don't know, and getting shrunk into yourself. I just don't think of Cloud like that. And I'm not entirely sure if that making that comment there affects some events later, actually. I don't know if it's a trigger or not. Okay. So it looks like we just walk out. I think for the initially Cloud, the first bombing run, the second bombing run, or the bombing missions, after the bombing missions and during the second bombing mission, we start to see a Cloud who is definitely who really does care about other people. It's pretty damn quick, you know. He's not been there long with Avalanche, with the group, with Barrett, Tifa, and you know, prior to their deaths, Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse. So he's had his little space to be a jerk, but as time has gone on, and not much time has passed, but I feel that enough interaction has occurred, enough events have occurred, that Cloud actually, he is now displaying the truth of how he really feels, which is he cares about these people. He's a caring person, and that's instinct, that's innate, that's in Cloud as well. Okay. So I guess it wasn't clear actually where, for me, where Elmira and Marlene went, and I know there's an event later which, you know, suggests not Marlene's whereabouts, but certainly Marlene's situation. Okay, so great, there's direction there. I'm going to save it here, and what I'm going to do is just kind of pull up some of my points, I think, that I wanted to make about the live stream, I think, and so at this point we know that there is that people return to the planet, and I think that's the limit of what we know at the moment. We don't know too much more than that they're, you know, they die, they return to the planet, and Aerith can sense that. Whether she can sense it for all people, or maybe maybe it's just for people that are close to her, you know. But I think actually Aerith, it was in her anyway, that she could always speak to the planet, and that the planet could tell her anything with regard to, you know, anything with regard to spirits, life and death. Now I already touched on earlier about Mako, live stream. You know, the Mako is the sort of, it's obviously a highly dangerous substance, and you know, and it's comparative to nuclear power, as I say. So, you know, it mutates when it comes through the surface, even naturally in areas on the planet. But of course, it happens more at Midgar because, and it will happen at Midgar naturally because there are all these reactors sucking up life stream right out of the planet. And so that explains why we have monsters, even possibly strangely evolved creatures or mutated creatures like the houses that we fight that kind of burst open. I think what I wanted to talk about was reincarnation. And I think that idea, I won't probably have much of a chance to talk about that right now in the greater scheme of things, because right now all we know really is that people return to the planet, that's all we know at the moment. We don't know so much that they return yet. But I think all I will say right now is that I've done a little bit of reading around it. It's just really interesting and fun to see how the developers, the writers of the game, pulled ideas, it seems, and pulled ideas, particularly I think from those religions which promote reincarnation, particularly as a reality. And also as the thing to expect, really. And I think the main ones that stood out, obviously, were Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism. And I think, obviously, that those three sort of spin-offs of very much the same kind of ideas, although, actually, if they in terms of reincarnation, anyway, and karma, they're all quite similar, but they just kind of look at things a little differently. Now, right now, as I say, we don't know much more than that people return to the planet. But I think part of my critique and analysis, or critical analysis, is going to be looking at that element of the game as we probably come round to events which really trigger that for us. But I really do think it's what it is for me when I think of the live stream, when I think of reincarnation. What's happened there is they have made very much physical, and very much, although I don't know if it's known by everyone, because obviously some people study planet life in this world, in Final Fantasy VII, but perhaps a lot of people don't really know about the cycle of life, of life and death, death and rebirth. So yeah, I think that's. So yeah, it's something that I think it's somewhat known in that world, but it's the point is that the planet itself and the live stream within it are very much physical manifestations of the ideas of reincarnation. Whereas obviously, let's think about Buddhism. Buddhists, they believe that there's no soul. There's a consciousness, and it's kind of limited. But there's no soul that migrates from one body to another. It's simply that. So there's no self. Let's say. I think it's we play out our lives from one life to the next, and depending on karma, we'll end up in different levels of either higher levels of existence or lower levels. And the higher levels could be demigods, and humans, and the lower levels are animals or even ghosts, and hellish beings, actually, which are the lowest, I think. But yeah, the I'm kind of losing my trail of thinking here. Those elements aren't obviously explored so much in Final Fantasy VII. Those particular things, but yes, it's true. It seems later on in the game that we identify that people can be born human, die, obviously, and then come back as a tree or any other animal. And I think that's a beautiful idea. And as I say, it's just made physical. It's made real. And that was my point. In Buddhism, they don't even think there's a soul. So in many ways, there's no way of identifying the physical element in reality. It's just it's above and beyond that. So that's why in the real world, belief in these things is very much a faith. You have to kind of have faith. And there's no particular evidence. There's no way. It's not something that even science can. And I think this is about falsifiability. It's something that cannot be falsified. It can't be. Science cannot prove or disprove. But I'm critical of religion and of even including the idea of reincarnation. But yes, in Final Fantasy, the world makes it real. The world makes the possibility of dying and coming back a very real thing. It's ingrained in that planet. It's real there. And I did mention earlier about Nirvana. The Promised Land, and it's similar. There have been similarities there to Nirvana, or as it's also known in Hinduism, Moksha, I think. Moksha. Sorry. The idea now in Buddhism, Nirvana is finally letting go of ego, of self, recognizing that there is nothing, that nothing is real, particularly that you are not real. You've let go of all your desires, you've let go of all your needs, and that really that bliss comes from letting go of the self, and that you become one with everything. In Hinduism, in moksha, the idea is that you attain self-realization, self-knowledge, that you reach the perfect form of understanding of yourself. So that's kind of the opposite, actually. And just thinking about, and I say the Promised Land here, as just in reference to it, it was spoken about earlier. It's spoken about in a literal sense. President Shinra's looking for the Promised Land through the use of Aerith, an ancient, with her innate skills and ability. And of course we know that the Promised Land, there is no Promised Land. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist on the surface anyway of the planet. Of course there's a life stream, and it's just about getting to that. And of course President Shinra and Shinra Inc. don't care about how much damage they're going to cause the planet. Clearly, that's why Avalanche exists. But yes, that the Promised Land, for me, I think it makes